Welcome to Let's Live Clean, the podcast that shares the best sustainable living tips and advice from pioneers across the spectrum. This series, we're diving into waste and how we can turn it to our advantage, from wasted opportunities to wasted connections, and today we're looking how to pivot from wasting a crisis to embracing it with Agamemnon Otero, CEO of Energy Garden and co-founder of Repowering. I'm Georgina Wilson-Powell, author of Is It Really Green? And I'm passionate about uncovering the most impactful ways we can all live cleaner, greener lives. Today, we're talking to our guest about how he turned a crisis over how to bring people together into a moment of transformation, using gardening and renewable energy to rethink a system. We're all familiar with the UK's energy crisis and rising bills, thanks to global energy insecurity, and the move to renewables hasn't quite been as swift as we need it to be. Nearly 2.8 million English households are projected to be in fuel poverty in 2025, and as of this autumn, 1 million UK households are behind on their energy bills, with average debts of around £1,400 for gas and £1,600 for electricity. Crises are something we've all had a lot of experience with. Our lives are shaped by collective cracks in the system, but those cracks don't just let the light in, they force us to change. It's in these moments that we pause, rethink what matters, and begin again differently. But my guest today, Agamemnon Otero MBE, saw that crisis as a chance to do something radically different. The energy crisis led him to found Energy Garden, which supports local communities in London by setting up solar projects and community gardens. Energy Garden is an award-winning initiative that has grown from a single plot in 2012 to a network of thriving green spaces and solar projects backed by more than 500 community investors. Across London, over 17 station platforms now bloom with community gardens, and those gardens are being powered by something bigger, community-owned renewable energy. He is also the co-founder of Repowering, Brixton Energy and Community Energy England. Agamemnon has been named one of the world's most impactful green leaders, awarded an MBE for services to community energy, and has even had his work showcased at the Venice Biennial. Through this work, he has shown that we don't have to waste a crisis. Instead, we can turn it into an opportunity to grow resilience, build beauty in unexpected places, and put power, literally, back into the hands of our communities. Cool. So welcome to Let's Live Clean, Agamemnon. Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
For anyone who hasn't heard of Energy Garden, let's just talk through exactly what it is, and then we'll come back a bit to your story. But I want everyone to understand what you've created, first of all.
Okay. So Energy Garden is the largest community energy organization in London. We plant green spaces and make gardens, but also mini forests, include people into those spaces, and it's all run by community-owned renewable energy, so that we come together to invest into energy infrastructure, and then all of that money buys solar, and then the revenue from that pays for officers to help facilitate these green spaces. And on top of that, we have education programs for children, adults, and youth.
Amazing. So you're creating almost like your own mini system, complete end-to-end system of energy usage.
Yeah. It is. Well, the idea is basically that urban resilience is not just an individual organization or a city or a government trying to put in something that will deal with shocks and stresses, some smart tech idea, better gutters or better, technical solutions of power, thicker cables. It's about informing people of how they can grow their food, how they can capture water, how they can save money on their energy bills, and how they can build their future. And collectively, so because that's the true resource is human beings, and we're trying to facilitate that to happen through a dynamic dialogue with growing your own spaces and reclaiming spaces that would necessarily be assumed to be a great space to go, like train station platforms. So we've got these 20 spaces across London where we're saying there's 10 to 15,000 people a day here. They're going there looking at their phones, and why not turn the the journey into a destination, where you say, you look up and you say, oh, wow, what are those? Oh, those are hops growing. What do you do with those? I can make beer. Oh, what is that? There's a solar panel powering those lights, or powering the water pumps that are pumping water to different green spaces.
I love how interconnected everything is, because I think part of our issue nowadays is everything is so siloed with our energy over here, and we're thinking about our food over here, and we're thinking about sustainability over there. And actually, you've brought it all together in one system that feels very achievable for people on a small scale.
Yeah, I mean that I think bite-sized chunks. I think the paradox that we're living in right now is somehow this is one's fault, the consumer's fault, that individuals, they didn't change their light bulbs enough, and that's how we got into this position. Um, and that's not the case. There's collective action, which is very powerful. And we see individuals coming together, and we hear these great stories, but there's a sense that you're at fault and you're in the wrong place, when actually this is an attempt at growing home and saying that you're in the right place at the right time, and here are things that you can work on. And you won't necessarily have the perfect answer, but it is an answer, and it is the solution for right now, and you should be proud of that, and that is something to be proud of.
Yeah. And we need those positive messages more than ever. But just sort of going back a bit slightly, this episode is all about wasted crisis and using crises as opportunities, and trying to sort of change how we think about things, and look at systems from a different point of view. What sort of crisis moment led you to start the first energy garden? Because you've been in this for a while in the energy space, but you've had quite a few different triggers to get you to energy garden, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, people looking in say lots of things. I can tell you, I've had cancer twice. Once when I was 19, and once when I was 24, 25. And I've studied math, medicine, and architecture as not because I was really smart or want to do those things, but because I was like trying to fight with the system who told me that was it. You're going to die. This isn't going to work out for you. And so people will credit those things, and they'll say, oh well, that you could do that. That was the crisis, and maybe it was, but I would actually say it's slightly different. Is that I made my own garden. In the transition to thinking like, what can I do? Feeling overwhelmed and sort of disempowered to make a change in the world. I made my own garden. I put some solar panels on my roof, and when I was that sort of made me start to feel better. And then it was this moment where I sort of went beyond the front garden and went to this sort of bus stop that was right at the end of the road, and put some of the extra tomato plants into the space that was just a derelict old buzz bomb had knocked out two flats, and it was just a bus stop. And they were growing fine, and I would say to people, hey, look at the tomatoes. And one day I saw a boy just must have been 10 years old stomping a tomato plant. And my initial reaction was to go over and be like, hey, stop that immediately. This is a community space, and there's tomatoes for everybody to. And I remember looking at it and thinking, when I was 10 years old, I remember I leveled my grandfather's dragon lilies that were growing beautifully in front of this place in upstate Westchester. And I saw the anger and disappointment that I had experienced when I was that age, and the frustration of not being listened to or heard, and feeling that the world wasn't as I wished it. And I saw that, I went, maybe I won't say anything right now, and recognize that I put that tomato plant there, and I thought it was a worthy thing to do, and it basically started a journey which flipped this sort of me, I'm doing this, and me to we, this sort of like me to we. And that idea that like, okay, what do you want? Have you ever planted a tomato? Hey, buddy, have you ever planted a tomato plant? Do you know what this is? And the look on his face was like, who are you? And then we actually talked to his family who lived on the street, and we began to plant the things that people wanted in their gardens. And we had like cooking events where we'd all come. We closed off the road, had like um, a street party. And then from there, it built one organization which was making gardens on bus stops, and then it became making it on train stations and engaging with people on where coming from to where they are. And that's what I would credit um, the the major crisis moment, which generated all this work.
Yeah. And I think as well, it's such we've had this discussion throughout the podcast, but the sort of the nature side, gardening side of sustainability is a really good access point for people, because around growing food, around growing plants, about experiencing nature, no matter where we come from or perhaps what our values are, or what we think is important, most people want to be in nature. They value plants, they like growing things, they want to look after their gardens. It's
Mm.
a really good way to bring people together. And I love how
Mm.
you've then amplified that into kind of permanent spaces that have lots and lots of different yields, the food, the community, the energy. Have you been inspired by sort of permaculture principles, or
I was able to work and live on farms in America when I was a kid growing up, and my mom was a really big supporter of community of CSAs, of like
okay, yeah,
community agriculture and supported farms, and we went to a lot of those, and we lived off grid for a little while. So I saw a lot of the principles in place, but then I took a proper course in
yeah,
it. Yeah, and the principles are really fundamental to life in the sense that like you need to keep spaces wild,
yeah.
have things that are efficiently planted. Like you want your lettuce close to the door and your wild butterfly meadow at the end of the garden.
Definitely. That's it. And using edges, which is
Mm,
so yeah, I recently did my permaculture course, which is why it came
nice.
to mind. And I just love the focus on the marginal, on the edges, which you
Mm,
seem to have really kind of embraced. And they are those spaces that people walk past and don't do anything with, but the moment someone else cares for them, people really value it. And
mm,
that seems to be what you've brought in. How many spaces do you have now in London?
Well, there's 20 spaces. 17 of them are gardens on train station platforms. Whether it's like working with Q Society, which is the oldest community gardening charity in the country, I think, um, to developing new spaces at, I don't know, Bronze Bay Park or Broccoli, where the train had just basically, there was a time when, Grow for Britain in the Dig for Britain in the Second World War, where the communities were, London was really staggered and trying to deal with food poverty and lack of access to good vegetables. That a lot of the train station platforms had the station manager would make a garden, and so we've got great footage of that. But we've got 17 spaces, which I've actually made 43 of them over the last 15 years, and we've gotten rid of a whole bunch of them recently because the sort of working journey is to actually not just take these concrete spaces that were completely, were uninhabitable, and then we put on big planters to try to make them slightly hospitable. But we've really reduced the amount to make sure it's places where we can put vegetables and plants and into the soil, put solar on it there, catch your water, like look at water attenuation, and have some wild spaces. So yes, we have 17 gardens on the train stations, and then we've got 3 big spaces where they're like, we've planted the second largest Miyawaki forest in London, and
Wow.
yeah, so we're doing like, it's really creating open, inclusive, engaging spaces. I'm not for allotments.
Yeah.
I'm for community spaces where people can come and integrate into learning about what effectively would be a low carbon just transition.
Yeah. Well, actually, and seeing these spaces in action, I think that's so important, because so often we're told about these theoretical solutions and how the future might be, but we don't often get to see it in action, or get to
Mm,
see someone that's done it, especially on a scale that is very urban and kind of just round the corner. You're not, it's not far away, and it's a sort of pipe dream kind of thing. I think that's so key to getting people's hands dirty, literally, in the ideas.
And that's the idea, like however far you are away, and how emotionally you are able to compute a new bit. I mean, some people are just working so many hours and are so stressed with work and family and different life pressures that they don't have the capacity to come to our weekly sessions. And because we have full-time engagement officers who are working in the garden, we have full-time biodiversity coordinators, full-time community trees officers, ecologists, schools program coordinators.
Amazing.
All these people help facilitate, whether you have schools programs and bringing them, going to the school, working on cool projects, looking at the UK pedagogy, finding that really interesting piece that's been cut out, not because there's bad people somewhere, but because there wasn't enough time to be able to fit that in there anymore. And the environment and food, healthy food, or biodiversity is the stuff that gets cut out of the curriculum. Bringing that back in and saying to the school, well, it'll be a free for you guys. You can we'll come to you, or we'll come to that station. And building that program to do that, some people go, oh my God, this is what I've been looking for. I'm going to come and hang out. And other people say, this is amazing, and I can only come every few months. And that's fine. So you have set coordinated hours twice a week in one space where you have a fully facilitated with, bathrooms to, wheelchair accessible to facilitated conversations around biodiversity or horticulture. And that's the key in resilience, is not like cramming an idea down someone's throat, but creating the opportunity for them to do it with their hands, build it with, build the birdhouse, make the beehive, dig the soil, harvest it. We don't sell any of the vegetables. We don't sell the beer. You as a member, you get it. As a volunteer, you just get it.
That's
It's
amazing.
for you.
That's amazing. And I think also that consistency is key because so many projects start and we all go all in the first 6 months, and then things peter out because there's no structure in place.
I
That sounds like something you've experienced.
It's that thing. It's like, so as a community benefit society, we went through this. I mean, 10, 15 years ago when the Community and Societies Act came through in 2014, there was a ride up to it. The transformation of, there was this idea that cooperatives in the UK, built from the Rochdale cooperative, which was coal miners trying to come together against these large landowners trying to make all the money off of selling this natural asset. They built a more just organizational structure called it was basically the Rochdale Cooperative. And that transformation into a cooperative of, one vote, one share, a holding, allowed people that, regardless of the amount of money they had, invested into their membership of that organization, they would get an even amount of say. So regardless if you put in 500,000 or 50 pounds, you still had a say, and it was equivalent to the person who put in larger amounts. And that is very fundamental to a cooperative. But in the Cooperatives and Societies Act 2014, they basically said co-ops couldn't help people who weren't their members. And there was a sticking point, and then all of a sudden Co-op Bank, Co-op Supermarket all stopped being effectively real co-ops because they would only be able to serve to their membership, and there was no way they could do that. So we were in the middle of that row, and we became a community benefit society, which meant we help all of the members and the wider community. And it has to be that transparency from the outset. So while it was new and people were like, what is this organization? 10 years ago, 12 years ago, 11 years ago. Now they're like, okay, cool. I get that structural.
Yeah, it is so key to have that structure in place. And I want to come back and talk about the community energy side of things, because also you've been so pioneering in that space. But we're just going to leave a quick break for our sponsor Ecover, and then we'll be back.
Nearly 80% of us run the dishwasher before it's full. Pack your dishwasher like you pack your car on moving day. If it's not full, it's wasteful. Ecover.
Let's dive back into the community energy side of things, because that is really interesting. And I was just watching the documentary We Are Power, We Are the Power, that you were in, that Patagonia did. And it was really lovely to see your expertise in the midst of a much wider sort of European power revolution almost of all these people putting different co-op ideas together for local energy. How, for someone that hasn't kind of come across this idea before, that energy can be created in sort of local grids or sort of peer-to-peer networks, where do you fit in with that? How would you explain it to somebody?
Community energy is the term for collectively funded energy assets that deliver a return beyond the members' financial welfare, but to the greater community.
That's
Yeah.
it. That's simple.
So, and that can, and yeah, and this can come in the forms of like fuel poverty. It can come in the forms of, in our case, community gardens. And in my first iteration, so I've built 9 community energy organizations, and over the last few years, it went from working in Brixton next to my house on a social housing estate, trying to deliver fuel poverty initiatives from the revenue from the solar on the roofs, to saying, maybe we should include debt management, because people who are in fuel poverty isn't necessarily because they were paying too much for their energy bill alone. They were caught between the heat and eat dilemma. So then you say, well, let's do some debt management. And then you say, oh, well, what about food? What about air quality? And so they're all social and environmental outcomes. It's a charitable organization, the Community Benefit Society. It has charitable aims, but it is not considered a charity.
Mm-hmm.
And so the community energy journey for me is one thing, but to respond directly to your question, like Energy Garden is the largest community energy organization in London now. It has over 500 members, and it has around 700 kilowatts. We make about a gigawatt of power a year that we sell both to run trains in London, as well as all of Patagonia consumption in the UK. So we provide all their power. And that came out from that movie. They came to us saying, what you're doing in community energy, you've got an MBE for it. You helped to draft the strategy for the UK, draft the strategy for Europe, and talk to the RESCOOP, the Renewable Energy Cooperatives for all of Europe. What do you think the future holds, and how can we spotlight what you're doing? And I said, stop the presses. If you want to make a transformation, be the pioneer in community energy and work on a transformational project where you can consume our energy. And they did that, and it took us a little while, but we did it. So we're innovators in that sense. We won the National Rail Innovation Awards last year, which because we did the first community solar on the rail, and that means communities came together to take on a lease of solar assets on huge train depots, and then the revenue from the sale of that energy into the building, they get a discount rate. And then any excess goes to pay for people like Patagonia, Parker Herbs, Faith in Nature, Big B Corps.
Yeah.
And that generated a revenue for us to pay all of our staff. And 100% doesn't go to pay for trips or, go anywhere, but to drive the program forward, to create more educational programming and to deliver more social and environmental outcomes.
I love that. And again, you're building your own closed loop system that is much more resilient, much more community focused. And I think I saw that you wrote up somewhere that there's 2 forms of energy. There's the electrical energy and there's the human energy, which I really love. And you're in the market of both, which makes total sense. I also read, I think there's around 600 community energy co-ops or companies in the UK. Is there much? Are you learning from each other? Is everyone kind of trialing different things, or is it how do you fit in the wider sort of UK scheme?
Well, 15 years ago, there were not so many. The sector was very small. There was no inner city community energy organizations. There was it was very focused on a demographic of people, retirees. Mostly in the Midlands, who were doing some really cool projects, and it was mostly collective, investment, sort of like group buying clubs, I think.
Yeah.
And we've really organized ourselves, and I really was interested in having an urban play where there would be, people would be interested in, invigorated to think about their rooftops as opposed to taking over large scale farming degraded land opportunities and look at large-scale buildings in the built environment. And so to do that, I had to trial many different organizations, so Brixton Energy, Hackney Energy, Vauxhall Energy, Community Energy, Repowering. They were all organizations trying to build a model that could be applicable. And to do that, I joined with 3 other people, and we developed an organization called Community Energy England, which would have to proliferate the narrative and the ideas, because otherwise ministers and things were just coming down to Brixton and into London to see, because they were close to the House of Parliament. And what we needed was a national body. So we spent a year and a half trying to get that off the ground. It was a really great piece, because what it did was it allowed us to share all the learning and have a repository of information. So lease agreements, power purchase agreements, case studies that the government do. On top of that, I worked on loads of worked with all of the parties, the Conservatives, the Labour Party, and the Cooperative Party, and the Liberal Democrats, to come up with strategies for community energy. And then we worked, and then that could then live inside Community Energy England, which now facilitates for all the different countries of the UK, because Ireland, Wales, Scotland all have incredibly powerful programs in their own right, to this day.
That's incredible. I love how it's gone bottom up and top down to build the whole system. And obviously, we're not just talking about creating power, but also something else you're really passionate about is that empowering people through the energy gardens, through community energy. What have you seen it do for some of the people that you've been involved with? Because I hear that there's sort of quite amazing stories once you open up this space for people and start tackling energy poverty and start giving people confidence and empowerment. What have you seen?
I have noticed young people who are in fuel poverty, maybe young carers who don't seem to have a way out, living on estates, who've gone through the youth training program, investing. It's a paid accredited program, so they took some of their payment and bought shares, and this is the first time they bought shares. They've gone on to be employed in energy management. We've had, and I don't want everybody to become solar installers or necessarily gardeners. I want them to be empowered people. And so the stories, we have about 8,000 volunteer hours a year.
Wow.
of people. Then there's probably about 150 community groups that we're working with. So I could go on and on, but I'll give you so just a few shots. We have young children, because we're working with about 3,000, 5,000, between 3 and 5,000 a year school children from key stage 2 till 5, who have noted that they talked to their parents about energy, brought them to the gardens, got energy reductions in their energy bills, have learned so much about biodiversity. We have people who were in care, who've had vulnerable experiences in the past, who've treated the green spaces as refuges, felt that they were safe and inviting for them. And we've had investors who just people who never invested in anything before, and people who've invested hundreds of millions coming to us saying this is an incredible program and we're really excited. It gives a transformational piece. I mean, from the chief exec of the Resilient Cities program, Michael Berkowitz, saying that it was a resilient cities model that was that should be demonstrated around the world, to the World Economics Forum doing a film about it. So to businesses like Patagonia and Faith in Nature, who said, to be able to buy our power from a community organization that we want to see doing that, and to be able to have a social premium where we know that every kilowatt and megawatt that we consume is generated by them, and for every kilowatt that we consume, we know that a youth is going through education, or that a tree is being planted, and having that ability to clearly see, which is really, the energy market is very opaque, and clearly see a direct linkage between their consumption and the social and environmental outcomes that are being delivered on their behalf when they consume that energy.
Making that link shorter, more transparent, more local, because I think that's also the thing. We see so much around offsetting, or we see so much around, oh, you're buying green energy, but it's just going into the grid, or
Mm,
you're paying for tree planting, but it's the other side of the world. Like
mm.
having that direct link and it being somewhere you can go and visit, or you know people that might have benefited directly from it. I think that's such a powerful story.
Exactly that. Exactly that.
We've touched on it slightly. You've obviously played a part in the film that Patagonia put out called "We're the Power." You are involved in Rescoop. Am I saying it right?
Rescue.
Rescoop. Sorry. How do you fit in with the other European initiatives? Like, do you guys take inspiration from each other, advise each
Mm,
other?
mm.
Who's doing something that you are inspired by in this space?
So you asked the question before, do we learn from each other? And I think when you're building a sector, you definitely have to learn from each other. And that was in the UK. And Scotland is definitely leading. Their government, definitely the Scottish government, has led with creating lots of policies that enabled um, Wales and England and Ireland to follow. And they left us in the wake many times with all their different policies. So Community Energy Scotland has really been transformative for the UK. And yet what happens is that because England has the majority of the population, and when the story goes out to Europe, a lot of times there'll be equal distribution of storytelling from England, Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. And so it's ironic, but like if you look across Europe, Germany has great programs. Spain, Italy, the Nordics, they all have some great projects, but the learning is almost different because the policy landscape changes in each country. So within the European Union, like Germany leading for solar for community energy development, and they've had some great cases of taking over the grid and taking over supply companies, but they also have the largest open coal cast mine in Europe. Yeah. And then you get into these sort of nitty-gritty conversations around how can we develop a low carbon transition using these community energy development organizations. And so the forums are massive, and it's 100%. I've probably spoken at about 9 renewable ResCoop organizational annual general meetings, and been a keynote speaker in multiple ones, both in the European Union, and in conversations around those, and just one part of a big cog that is part of another cog, which is part of a massive machine. And I'm very proud that we all have the ability to listen to each other. And please, I think it's important to say, I make mistakes every day. We as organizations don't work as well together as we should. And some of my biggest issues have been when there are difficulties in supply licenses and trials in countries, and it always needs that extra set of hands and extra time to come up with collaborative solutions, because the incumbent sort of power dynamic from the current financial fiduciary responsibility world is, this is mine. It's very Gollum-y, like, it's my precious, I'm going to make it work. And I think that really we need collaboration consistently demonstrates that it is the greatest breakthroughs happen in that way. And that sharing definitely is the best place to do that. And it brings out the best things. So yes, we do all share. Yes, we've learned. I loved what the examples that were in the Patagonia film, We the Power, and there are incredible groups across Europe and the UK doing incredible programs every year, and I could list them for a while.
We might put some, we can put some examples in the show notes. Do you think there are other industries or systems that can learn from the sort of energy crisis, from how you've turned a crisis into an opportunity? Do you think there are other things that need rebuilding as more circular systems? I mean, pretty much every system does, but do you think there's anything that can be learnt directly?
Yeah, I think this whole piece around collective, that narrative of community energy could be community development.
Mm.
So, for instance, right now, the UK has a air quality issue, right? They have a fuel poverty issue. We've got a housing issue. So, in terms of collectively coming together to uh, pay for a solution. Money buys resource,
Yeah.
right? So when we do need, let's say you have all the people in the right will in the right places and you're having collective meetings, usually you can find the money. But so in terms of that direct response, I'd say air quality. So for instance, we breach the European target for a city like London would be have a certain amount of heavy particulate matter from PM2.5s to PM10s that should go into a city, and we breach ours in 19 days. In the full year's consumption in 19 days. And so how do we come up with a solution for that? And London was paying for the fines, and as opposed to dealing with the solution. And what we've done is we've actually collaboratively investing into a solution, and then working with the local authorities and to come up with projects. And if you look, I've worked with the head of Imperial College, Tilly Collins, environmental governance program, and we came up with this paper, which was peer reviewed, around the methodology for shaping air in urban area, and through that we basically collectively put together people coming in and investing into this infrastructure program, which is basically air shaping the city and reducing heavy particulate matter in these corridors of where people are walking along the roads by 50%.
Wow.
So that can be funded by the community. And there are multiple examples of that, whatever that technology might be. Urban water attenuation, right? So you're saying that we have massive flooding in our small community. How do we address this? Let's collectively fund that. We don't have access to internet in our small community. How do we come up with it? Let's fund our own mini grid for internet, because it makes such a massive difference to have local communities in rural areas who don't have access to that. So it can be collectively funded, and that's what I would say is that collective funding and putting it into a community benefit society or a cooperative is such an exciting model, because it allows people to say, I'm taking control of my destiny, and I'm doing it. I'm putting my money on this, and I believe in this, as opposed to some far-flung idea of some tech guru who's going to get all these returns. You can say, well, I don't know much about this, but I believe this is right, and I want to put my money here, and that's transformational.
It really is. And is that, for you, is that where true resilience lies, true community resilience, by actually taking action, solving problems that are on your doorstep, rather than trying to solve the whole global economy, but actually taking action very locally?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big proponent of think globally, act locally, and I think we want easy takeaways sometimes. And the the feeling that you get when you sit down and do your taxes, or the feeling when you get when you look at your list and you go, I'm not going to do the easy win. I'm going to do the one that is most pertinent to right now. And when you complete it, that sort of restlessness that was in your chest, in the musculature of your body, that eases. That is what dealing with these big, ugly, multi-headed problems does, by trying to, it releases all that tension. And that really starts by doing the hard yards to research what it is, open your mind, come up with a solution, and then share that. This is the hardest bit, not doing the research. Share it, and then with your great idea that you thought up in a glass tower, might even be a green glass tower, coming down and saying, this is my idea, what do you think? And then people going, that stinks. You got to change it. You got to remake that. And then collectively, the hive mind is more powerful. And then it flows around things like water. Any blockade, any stone, anything that's in impasse that you can't come, you are able to then address it.
I mean, it sounds amazing. I think we just need you to solve all of our problems and put the community solutions out there for us to pick up. But what's next for Energy Garden? Because obviously, I mean, you have a lot going on, and there's a lot of building and a lot of success, which is amazing to see. You mentioned there was a big partnership with Govia Thameslink with the railways, which you've won an award for. Where do you go from here?
So what we've been doing for the last few years around growing the solar is exciting, and we're always looking for partners to do that. I like big businesses that have big rooftops. I don't want to put solar on fields where you could have arable land or community spaces. I want it on rooftops. So we're looking for those partners, and we've got a couple there, and so we're very excited about those. And being able to have that social environmental premium that goes on top of their sale of energy so they're adding that on. So that's very exciting. With the air quality program we're rolling out, we've got permission from a few local authorities to say that we can have we've trialed these big, like, street long urban corridors to do that. So we're looking for partners to support that. We've got a whole urban community trees program.
Nice.
We're taking the disenfranchised communities, underrepresented communities, usually Black and brown in urban spaces, who don't feel that going to parks is necessary for them, or they don't culturally feel that it's comfortable, or there's nothing in that green space for them. Building an infrastructure and communicating with them that this is for them, and running ecological programs, biodiversity programs. That's super cool. And finally, I think the idea that we're looking to grow in London, obviously, but that our next step would be to go to another city. So getting all the feelers out there to do it. People from Bristol, people from Manchester, people from Birmingham have said, we're really excited you do it. But if we have, what we'll do is there'll be a collective vote. Like, people say, oh, we really want to come here, because we're interested in having an urban city resilience model that can as a template. And just to respond to your point around, you can solve problems. I haven't solved anything. I've just been a conduit for the communities, the board, the members, the staff members on this team, all those amazing people who helped along the way. The thousands of people who do the community volunteers just within Energy Garden are supported by all the work that's gone before. So it's a collective action where I'm so proud to be a part of it. And if we can show that model works, and this is a vehicle that the others can then work with and fit into, then all are welcome to share in that success. And the learning is not mine. Most of my ideas were wrong. They were good, but they needed working on. And it was the other people around me that highlighted that. Whether it's a community group in Brixton talking about fair payments for young youth trainees while they're learning about fuel poverty, to derogations on energy power purchase agreements, and talking to different partners. The real knowledge is in taking your idea, setting it down on the table, getting it really clear and solid, and then opening it up and saying to people, what's missing, what else do we need to do, and being able to listen and then rebuild.
That takes a big heart, though, and not everybody could do that. So it really does. It's very testament to who you are and what you've built, because that is the tricky bit, as you said, and something we all need to do more of. We're ending every episode of this Let's Live Clean series with 3 quick questions for our listeners. What's one thing people can do in their neighbourhoods to help build that community, to help build that resilience? So perhaps before they've got a project, what's the first thing that they should be doing?
Talk to each other, communicate with one another, host a gathering, set a time aside that where everybody can reflect on what their needs are. If you people in the street parties, they'll be like, oh, what do we want to have with food? And sometimes they'll be like, oh, burgers, and they'll find out that half the road are vegetarian, or they're South African, they want biltong. I don't know. The point is that by communicating, you then break down a lot of barriers that you would have otherwise come up against. And then once you get all those people together, that mutual influence pushing for solutions, all the problems will become apparent, and then you have a really great substrate to be able to work from. So talk to each other.
Talk to each other, and food, always food. And what's one change they can make at home, do you think, to reduce energy? Obviously, a lot of people are in fuel poverty, cost of living is high. What's some quick changes?
Yeah, I mean, people would tell you move from a bulb to a LED or insulate your loft, but I think that was what we were saying for the last 20 years. I would say right now, there's such great rates out there. Become a fickle energy consumer. Change your supplier. The biggest wins for people in their energy supplying is to change their supplier and to let supply companies know they're going to leave if they don't give them a better rate. It's the people who are on these old tariffs that have never changed before, locked in. So that's on energy. That's what I'd say there. On food, I'd say demystify it. it is actually way easier. Just dump your little bits of green waste into a big pot right on your windowsill or out to your back garden. Make that compost, throw your seeds in there, and whatever comes up, grow it. And start there, and that'll get you. If that doesn't get your appetite wet, nothing will.
Absolutely. I'm growing rhubarb for the first time this autumn. I'm so excited. So excited. It's so big. And finally, how do people turn a crisis into a new creative solution? Is it a mindset thing? Because I feel like it is.
Yeah, I think I started by saying to you that I didn't realize I was exactly in the right place at the right time. And the narrative that it's our fault, we can maybe change a light bulb, is not the case. When you bring neighbors together and you feel supported by others, like-minded people, that's when empowerment starts to take hold of you. And, community energy is a factor in that, and you can use it to say, and I could give you the line like, oh, it's in its two forms, community or in power. But I think the transition to an empowered, resilient community starts with people opening up to one another and recognizing that while they might have some differences, they share many things in common. And if they work together, those things that seem insurmountable can be surmounted, and and you can have more fun than anybody else. It's not, the sustainability journey isn't one of like cardboard and brown, I don't know, dandruff. It's not. It's beautiful. It's fun. It's sexy, and we should be looking at it like that. You have to give something up to become a more sustainable and live in a clean. Let's live clean, and therefore I'm going to give up smiling or going on holiday. It can be fun and interactive and engaging.
That's it. It's all the additional wins that we need to be talking about. And hey, we started this conversation with you saying you brew your own beer on hops that you've made yourself. So like, if that's not the best energy company I've ever heard of, I don't know what
the best bit is that we give it away to all the volunteers who come and make it. The other day we had like 65 people picking hops. They'd all come from all the different gardens, and while they were picking them, they were drinking the beer from the last brew, and we didn't charge them, because all that labor of picking and putting in there, it helps to make it. Yes, we have to pay for the beer, and so we sell off some of it, maybe 10-15% to like corporate partners who are like, oh, I really want some of that beer. But the majority of it we give to our volunteers, and that I think is really cool, that you can sit down with people you don't know and spend 3-4 hours just picking hops like they used to do in Kent for like generations, and enjoy one another's company, and drink the brew that comes from your local train station, and enjoy one another and one another's company, and walk away going, I feel empowered. I feel like I can make a difference, and just demystify the drinks company.
Well, I feel empowered just talking to you. I mean, I want to go and start. I mean, my train station does not have anything like what we've been talking about. So I'm going to go be eyeing it up on my next train into London, seeing where they could get a little food forest in there.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for your time today and all of your thoughts and insights. It's been really, really wonderful. Thank you so much for being on Let's Live Clean.
Thank you very much for having me. I hope that all of your listeners can feel that I've lived this, and I want them to as well. This is not a personal, like, I'm not better or wasn't lucky. It's really, I'm a failure every day, and recognizing that failure in me gives you the impetus and the knowledge to grow and transform, and that it's a great thing to be a part of, and join wonderful. Us. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think everybody will be joining after listening to this interview. Thank you so much. That was great.
Thank you.
So what have we learned today? That renewable energy isn't just about carbon emissions. It's about people owning their power. And that resilience is grown, nurtured and shared. Energy Garden has shown us that small plots can seed big change. And that with over 500 people already backing the movement, this is just the beginning. And sometimes turning a crisis into an opportunity is how systems change. How can you think differently about the challenges you have? Maybe it's upcycling something that's broken or exploring how a constraint can make you behave differently. If you'd like to get involved in Energy Garden, check out energygarden.org.uk, whether that's investing, volunteering, or just visiting one of their gardens. And if you'd like to read more about how you can pivot from wasting to embracing a crisis, check out ecover.com for articles around creating local routes and moving from fear to fuel. That's it from us for this episode of Let's Live Clean. In this series on waste, we'll continue exploring wasted opportunities, wasted connections, and lots more. Follow us and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And for more on today's conversation and Ecover's mission to waste less at home, head to ecover.com. See you next time on Let's Live Clean.